Here we go, day one of our 11-day trip through the Alps. We start in my parents' house where I grew up in Welzheim in southwest Germany. And our destination for today wasn't totally fixed, but we figured we could make it to Singen, which was almost 200 kilometers. This was definitely not the Alps yet, no tall mountains there, but you can also see it's not flat. 192 kilometers is quite a distance, and so we planned our route in a way to not include too much excessive climbing. And one way to do that is to follow river valleys whenever possible. The hills that you see on the left there is the Schwäbische Alb or the Swabian Jura. And somewhere in this picture is the European watershed between the Rhine to the right and the Danube to the left, which we crossed on day one. Tuttlingen is on the Danube, and out of Tuttlingen was the biggest climb of day one. And here's our destination, Singen.
Do it.
The weather forecast for day one was mixed. We got an early start and it was still dry, but that didn't last. So it started raining pretty like within the first 20 minutes or so when we left.
Because it was pouring during coffee.
Yes.
That's why we stopped for like an hour and a half.
Yes. Since it was warm, we didn't mind the rain all that much and got going after having breakfast. And yeah, it stopped raining, started raining again, stopped raining. Overall, not too bad. I think this was the first adjustment, I can't remember. Oh yeah, I kept dropping the chain off of my upper pulley wheel, which happened throughout the whole trip. I just got better at fixing it. And yes, it was still wet.
And muddy.
And muddy.
When we crossed this bridge, it was like, we were like, this is how a bridge should be.
Right, was this after
this
the
was
crash
after
already?
the crash, yep.
Wait, crash? Did somebody say crash? Yes, indeed. On the very first day, within the first probably 2 hours, we crashed, and both of us crashed. We were on a bike path and about to cross a river. There was a 90-degree turn. There was a bridge with a metal grate deck, which was wet, and both of us, right one after the other, wiped out. The damage was, well, I don't know. We were able to continue. Ben really had banged up his finger, his knee. I had fallen on my wrist. Ben's bike had taken some damage. So we just stopped for a while, sat down, gathered ourselves, and then continued because, I mean, A, I'm not gonna turn around on the very first day, and B, it seemed okay, at least for now.
Yeah, sure.
You can see, we're talking about espresso. At least I am
Yeah,
smiling.
I could do espresso.
Ben is filming, so I'm not sure. Our route followed the Neckar River up to Tübingen, and then we followed another river valley, still pretty flat for the most part.
Subway!
We didn't really find a good spot to have that espresso, and so we just kept on riding as one does on these kinds of trips. But eventually we saw a spot.
This is breakfast, or lunch.
Lunch, right. So this was this kind of farm, and yeah, we had lentil soup, espresso,
Yep.
and peacocks.
Peacocks. And rain. It started to rain while we were there. Just a little bit of rain.
There wasn't any point in trying to wait it out, so we put on our rain jackets and continued.
This is where the lady...
Yes.
Yeah, the chocolate.
Yes, this is where the sad lady saw us and was like, "Oh, do you want a chocolate? I have a Kit Kat for you."
Hi.
Check
out that castle.
Hohenzollern Castle.
I mean, it was very, except for the rain, I just remember it being very, and the crash. It was very relaxed.
The weather gradually did clear up and the landscape was really nice. The hills, they're not mountains yet, the hills started getting a little bit hillier. We got to see cool stuff like this limestone quarry aerial ropeway. So yeah, we were having a good time, I think.
At this point, we were a little concerned that they would shut down this road.
Right, it was closed and it was actively being worked on.
We just decided to go ahead anyway.
Yeah.
I'm glad we did because, it was cool.
Eventually, between the injury and already having ridden well over 100 kilometers, yeah, I think it was time to sit down, eat a little bit, and more importantly, make a plan for where we were going to stay. Hotels were pretty limited, which partly drove our decision to keep going to Singen.
Yep.
We had split the track into whatever 150k segments, and this is where our finish was.
Right.
One big thing looking at the route profile was that there was one big climb in between us and the hotel. And this is what we're doing right here.
Hopefully the last climb of the day. We are on Witthochsteige, which is pretty hard. See the valley here.
We could tell that I had like one more gear than he did.
Oh yeah, and we needed to adjust my derailleur because it kept going into the spokes.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Now climbing is one thing, but just as we get to the top of the climb, my tire goes flat instantly.
It was more than just flat, it was a
right, shredded tire.
Shredded tire, and the realization that
realization of all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of stuff.
What shredded your tire? Was it just a really old tire?
No, the brake pads were, either from the crash or from reassembling the bike, so the brake pads went into the sidewall of the tire and slowly started rubbing through. I think this was the best part for me, like going through this long, slow descent, no cars.
Like 25
whatsoever.
Minutes?
It was pretty long.
It was long. And it was, yeah. Pretty spectacular. Yeah, you can see all ahead for the most part. Yeah, beautiful. Well, we deserved the fuck out of that. Yeah.
Yeah, the only downside was at this point my wrist had started, like the pain had started coming in, where I was like, oh, it doesn't hurt at all for the first 2 hours after the crash, but then eventually, riding 200 kilometers like, yeah, after a while, your wrists.
It was a stress, you know, especially the end, we were starting to come to terms with, like, we're already pretty banged up. We're already burning through, like, supplies and tires.
Yeah, you fortunately encouraged me to go to find a spare tire, which I was not very optimistic about, but they had it, and I was there 5 minutes within their closing.
Yeah.
Day 2 would finally get us into the Alps, so stay tuned for that, and the next episode will be available sometime soon.